Hi folks, we're in the back of the ute. Guess who I've got? The Shane Joyce. Now, if you remember back to when I first started doing in the back of the ute yarns, De Berg and Marjorie Joyce were one of the very first people. So Shane is De Berg's brother, and I've just listened to him. We're at Kandanga Farm Stores with the Agvention field day, and Shane has just spoken to us, and I went, we need to get you in the back of the ute. So welcome, Shane. Thank you very much for joining me. I don't really know where to start because you're just this amazing person that's got so much regenerative information. Is there anywhere particularly that you would like to start?
So I guess, yeah, just a bit of background. I'm Shane, obviously. My journey into regen started in 1974, and I'm really grateful to an agronomist who was connected to a company called ACF and Shirley's. And he did soil tests and recommended I put on so many tonnes of urea and so many tonnes of superphosphate. And I had no money at the time. It was my first farm. I was trying to grow feed to feed pigs on, and I couldn't see the sense in spending all this money because the country was already overloaded with those chemical fertilisers. So that was the beginning. I then started searching for where can I find something. I came across permaculture and joined a permaculture group, and you know, I guess as they say, the rest is history. That led me to biodynamics. I read about biodynamics in '74 and promptly put the book back in the book cupboard and did nothing with it. I pursued some of the permaculture stuff until having pigs, chickens, cows, turkeys, ducks drove me absolutely crazy. So I got rid of them all. And then I guess evolution, I ended up with a wife and kids. So I had to get a haircut and a real job. I moved back out to part of the family property at Theodore in the Brigalow country. And I had the permaculture stuff stuck in my head, kind of as a base. And I could see that a lot of the stuff we were doing in that country didn't stack up economically. And it aligned with some of the permaculture stuff where they said that at that time in America, they were using 10 eggs worth of energy to produce 1 egg to put on your table. So I started to look at stuff and what was going on. So 10 years of experimenting on the Theodore property, Duke's Plain. I then connected up with Resource Consulting Service and Grazing for Profit workshop. Boom! You know, suddenly I had tools to measure what I was doing, and I had peers to confer with, and I had busloads of people coming to look at what I'd been doing. So I then had to learn some other skills in farming, and one of them was heading off to Sydney and doing a series of workshops on facilitation, train the trainer, and presentation.
Of course, yeah, because you were going down a different line, more of an educational line.
Yeah. And so 31 years on the place at Theodore. I sold it to a coal seam gas consortium for environmental offsets because I'd let all the trees grow back on it, and it was infested with rare and threatened species. So that suited their thing. It suited me because the only other prospect of selling it was selling it into what I call the buffel grass, bulldozers and bullocks brigade. So potentially I could sell it to somebody. Most of it was white on the veg mapping. So everything I'd done there could have been trashed with a bulldozer and exploited, like when we cleared the scrub off the country. So it was a godsend that the gas company came along because the work I've done has been protected. The property still runs cattle under a lease arrangement. I leased it back for 5 years. The young couple I had there managing for me and in partnership with me, they now lease it. So it's been a succession plan made in heaven.
Okay, wow, because yeah, a lot of that stuff, when they sell into that type of scenario, it's just locked up, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so you managed to keep it managed and for indefinitely then?
Well, part of their management policy is to get rid of the cloven-hoofed animals because that suits the regulators in Canberra and Brisbane.
Right.
Tick, getting rid of the cloven hooves.
Okay. Yeah.
But they are monitoring what they're doing there, and I'm optimistic that they'll get through to a space where they realise they need to have animals there to reduce the biomass and the fire risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So where are you now? Because you've got fresh new adventures happening.
So since January 2014, we bought a block at Kilkeven, 141 hectares, which is what I call a blank canvas. It was totally cleared. It was trashed through dairying, then beef, cattle and horses. So it was basically, there was no vegetation left on it. But it had a creek on one boundary that had permanent water in it. And the top of my list was water.
Yes. Yep.
So I'm working there in re-vegging that place, getting the whole system functioning again. So that's, yeah, I'm 9 years into that project. I've got a gully that was dry, is now running water 12 months of the year.
Wow.
So I've lifted the water table in the landscape. I'm starting to rehydrate the floodplains that had been dredged and drained so they could drive tractors and grow crops on.
Wow. Okay.
And planting trees. 2 years ago I planted 7 hectares of soot trees. So yeah, I'm now starting to get some natural regen happening.
Yep.
So the whole thing's getting some momentum, and so
What would you be doing here?
a lot of my get out of here, we're filming.
It's okay.
You're on camera.
It's okay, don't worry.
It's all right.
I'm very...
We can edit that bit out. I'll catch up with you in a while.
You can keep coming to...
Yeah, keep coming. Yeah.
We're very free in the back of the ute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice to see you. See you in there.
So where were we at?
Something about tractors and things on the floodplain.
Yeah, so the floodplains were all dredged, drained to get the water out so they could run tractors and grow crops for dairy cows and whatever else. So I've been plugging them back up again. You know, it's a good for the earth movers. One drains it, the other one comes and plugs it up again. So keeps them in business.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, one of the reasons that you are in the back of the ute was because you're pretty well the only person so far, and we've been having this series in the back of the ute for a couple of years now, who's sort of almost begged to get me to get in the back of the ute, because you were talking about marketing yourself and your aspirations and what you're wanting to do now, and who's out there. We've got to spread the word and get the intention out there. So can you tell me about that then?
So when I got exposed through the land care movement and the resource consulting service movement, I had to learn to talk about and give information on what I was doing. And I found out very soon that I'm absolute mole when it comes to a microphone or a camera. I love it.
So take it from there then.
So now a part of my brief now is selling the place at Theodore. It was getting in the road. I'd finished what I was doing there. It was getting in the road of what I was doing next, which was education. So the property at Kilkeven does get in the road a little bit, but it's not the size that the Theodore one was, so there's not as much property work to do. And so my focus now is on what I call passing on the tribal knowledge. It's education, it's sharing my experiences. So next year I've got 50 years in the regen space.
Wow.
So, and it's awesome for me, like interacting with people is just a space that I'm so privileged to get in that space. I love it, and I love seeing people when they light up, when they hear something. And in the biodynamic world, there's so many rituals in biodynamics, and I've done biodynamics quite differently. And I'll be facilitating a workshop and say something, and some old dude will get up that's been doing biodynamics for 20 or 30 years and say, "God, I wish I'd known it was so easy when I started." So I love that, bang, turn the lights on for somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it that you're doing, or what is it that you're trying to set up? Is that courses or something?
Yeah, I run regular workshops, and so a minimum of 2 workshops a year, so spring and autumn, and that coincides with the making of our biodynamic preparations. And I'll travel. If somebody wants, I had somebody approached me here today, wants me to go to Western Australia and do something. So I'll go anywhere in the country. Yeah.
So you really are, now you've opened up a whole new chapter pretty well, haven't you? So that you are accessible for people if they're saying, you know, I need you on my property, we're going to hold a group,
Yep.
would you like to come and speak? You're
Yep.
open to all that now.
And I do consulting work. So I'm consulting for gardeners, you know, small block owners up to broad scale. And the other thing I've just started doing is working with Towan Park Training and Stuart Andrews,
Yeah.
facilitating natural sequence farming workshops.
Okay.
And that's another boom for me. It's like water is the most important nutrient in our systems. And so they're all about water and vegetation. So it just fits with what I've been doing.
Yeah. Excellent.
Perfect fit. Yeah.
And so, yeah, just talk us through, for over 50 years, because I know of people that have been in the regenerative space for 20 years, but over 50 years, how has it changed then? Because you must have come across a lot of naysayers in those 50 years.
Yeah, the terminology didn't exist when I started. I think the more common terminology when I started was hippie.
Oh, okay.
Then it became sustainable, and it sort of evolved to regenerative. And I guess in the early years, you were really regarded as, I was introduced at a state land care conference in '97 by a next door neighbour, and you know, he said, you know, like this guy blew in as like the prodigal son with a beard and long hair. And it's, you know, I've evolved from there, from being a no-count hippie, through to what I say in the land care movement, I became like a national hero for the work I was doing. So
Yeah.
it's changed, and like until probably 15 years ago, anything in the regen space, you ran into so much bang, head clashing and argument and people challenging you. And it's got to the point now where people are almost too accepting of it, and they just listen, they want more information. And in that space, I endeavour now to bring some conflict into it, because that's where we do the learnings.
Yeah.
When somebody challenges you, that's where we do the learnings. If we all agree, if we all align and agree, the learning stops.
Yeah, okay.
So it's an interesting space to be in, to kind of, I suppose, be outspoken enough or controversial enough to shake people's cage a little bit.
So, and are you finding that people are actually, although they're agreeing with you, are they actually picking it up and doing it? Or are they finding it tricky?
That's been one of my missions, is getting action on the ground.
Yeah.
When I started going through biodynamic workshops and that sort of thing, I was meeting people who had done the workshop 3 years before
Right.
and done nothing about it.
Yeah.
So I've put a real focus on how do we bridge between workshop and action.
Yeah.
And so now when I have people to a workshop, or like today, what's the question that brought you here? And that really keys them in. And then you would have seen when I started this presentation, I handed out the small bottles of activator for people to bury under trees. So straight away they've got action when they go home.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So it's like, what action are you going to take when you get home? And it engages people. Suddenly they've committed themselves to taking action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now then, do you know Eric Tyne?
I don't. I do a lot of communication with him online, but I don't actually know him.
Okay, because I've got one of his universal energy towers.
Oh wow.
And so I just wanted to share that with you, because you were talking about the intentions and the what's the broadcasting?
The field broadcaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the one though with the? It's called something specific, isn't it?
The
That's
radionic.
Radionic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got all of that involved in the actual tower.
Yeah.
So it would be great for you to have a full-on chat, because that would be a very interesting conversation.
And it's the energetic space is really interesting. and there's lots of devices. There's, you know, there's what Eric's doing, there's the Hugh Lovell field broadcasters, there's a whole lots of different things. And at the end of the day, I view them all as tools, like a pendulum for dowsing, L-rods for dowsing are all tools. They're like crutches when you've got a broken leg. So we're here, and that's there, the energetic world. So it's what I call the abyss of disbelief between. We need crutches to get across that. We need the tools. When we make that crossing, all those tools become totally unnecessary. And if you want to really key into that technology, a lady called Lynn McTaggart, and she's got a book called The Power of Eight, and another one, The Intention Experiment, and another one called The Field. She's an investigative journalist.
Yeah.
She set out to prove all this stuff as total bullshit.
Oh, wow.
And she did all these experiments and distilled it down to this Power of Eight group. You can have a group of half a dozen to a dozen people. You can meet online or on the phone or something, and you can actually do 10-minute focused intense for particular outcomes.
Oh, so she completely converted herself.
Yeah, yeah. There's nothing like a skeptic. When you get a skeptic across the line, you've made progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, because that's what we're inevitably what we're aiming for, isn't it? That we are the vessel or the energy tower, or
Absolutely.
however you describe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shane. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
You know, I think that's enough. I kind of have this image of people's heads kind of swirling around. It's like, stop, Shane, stop.
Oh, well, if you do want more of Shane, join his courses and his field days and things. And what's the easiest way of contacting you? Have you got an email? A website?
At this stage, I've got an email. We're building a website.
Oh, you're building one.
Yeah.
Okay. All
So
right.
at this stage, I'm communicating with an email system.
Yeah.
With people directly. If I get their email addresses, I can keep them up to date with what I'm doing. We process a linking that to a website and a blog and da-da-da-da-da.
So if I include your email then
Yep.
on this,
Yep.
That's how you guys can get in contact.
Absolutely. Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you so much for spending some time in the back of the ute. And
Thanks.
I'm so proud that I managed to get you here. Thanks, Shane.
Thank you. Yeah, awesome.